Karen said my watchtower looked threatening. I showed her the FEMA registration code. Have you ever built something with your own hands only to have someone try to tear it down with a single word? That's exactly what happened to me when Karen, my nosy neighbor, called my backyard watchtower threatening and reported it to the city. What she didn't expect was that I'd turn her complaint into a lesson she'd never forget, armed with a FEMA registration code and a truth she couldn't argue with. It all started last spring when I decided to build a watchtower in my backyard. I live in Willow Creek, a small coastal town prone to hurricanes, and after last year's storm left half the neighborhood underwater, I wasn't taking any chances. The tower was my DIY project, a 15-foot wooden structure with a small platform, a weather station, and a clear view of the horizon to spot incoming storms. I checked every local regulation, secured permits, and even registered the tower with FEMA's hazard mitigation program to ensure it met safety standards. The registration code FEMA HM 4729 confirmed my compliance, and I was proud of my work. It wasn't just a tower, it was peace of mind for my family. Enter Karen. She moved in next door a year ago. Her pristine lawn and manicured hedges a stark contrast to my wildflower garden and practical projects. From day one, she'd been critical. My compost bin was unsightly. My solar panels were too shiny. But the watchtower? That was her breaking point. One sunny afternoon, as I was calibrating the weather station, Karen stormed over, her arms crossed and her face pinched like she'd bitten into a lemon. "That thing looks like a sniper's nest," she spat. "It's threatening, and it's scaring my kids." Her kids, for the record, were two teenagers who spent most of their time glued to their phones. I tried to explain the tower's purpose: storm preparedness, community safety, but she wasn't hearing it. "I'm reporting this to the city," she declared, stomping back to her house. I thought she was bluffing, but 2 days later, a city inspector knocked on my door. Karen had filed a formal complaint, claiming my tower violated zoning laws and posed a public safety threat. The inspector, a kind but overworked guy named Tom, looked apologetic as he handed me the notice. "We have to investigate," he said, eyeing the tower. "But it looks sturdy. Got any permits?" I showed him the stack of documents: the building permit, the engineer's certification, and the FEMA registration code. Tom nodded, impressed. "This is more thorough than most," he said. "I'll report back, but you're likely in the clear." I felt a flicker of relief, but Karen's accusation stung. Threatening? My tower was about protection, not harm. I wasn't going to let her smear my intentions. The real fight began at the next town hall meeting. Karen, in true form, had rallied a small group of her book club friends to back her cause. She stood up, clutching a petition with a dozen signatures, and launched into a dramatic speech about how my monstrosity was an eyesore and a danger. "It's not just ugly," she said, her voice quivering for effect. "It's a threat to our community's peace." The room murmured, and I felt my blood boil. I'd spent months researching, building, and ensuring every detail was legal. This wasn't just about a tower, Anna Maria, it was about my right to protect my family and my reputation. Then came the twist. Mrs. Alvarez, the quiet retiree who lived across the street, stood up. She was a retired meteorologist who'd lived through Hurricane Camille in '69 and rarely spoke at meetings. "I've seen that tower," she said, her voice steady. "It's got a weather station that could save lives. I helped him calibrate it." The room went silent. Karen's face froze, her petition suddenly looking flimsy. Mrs. Alvarez continued, "FEMA's hazard mitigation program encourages structures like this. If you'd bothered to ask, Karen, you'd know it's registered and compliant." She sat down and I could have hugged her. Karen hadn't expected a neighbor to counter her narrative, let alone one with credentials. I seized the moment. Standing up, I held up my FEMA registration document. "This is FEMA HM 4729, I said, projecting my voice. "My tower is part of a hazard mitigation plan to protect this community from storms like the one that flooded us last year. It's not threatening, it's a lifeline." I explained how the tower's weather station could provide real-time data to the town's emergency services, how it was built to withstand 120-mile-per-hour winds, and how FEMA's guidelines supported its construction. The room shifted. People who'd been swayed by Karen's theatrics started nodding. Karen's allies looked uncomfortable and she herself was gripping her petition like a lifeline. The confrontation peaked when the mayor, a no-nonsense woman named Clara, took the floor. She'd reviewed the inspector's report and my documentation. The tower complies with all local and federal regulations, she said. FEMA's hazard mitigation program explicitly supports projects that reduce disaster risk, and this qualifies. She turned to Karen. Your complaint lacks evidence. If you have specific concerns, bring data, not feelings. The crowd murmured again, this time in my favor. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it, her face reddening. The mayor moved on to the next agenda item, but the damage was done. Karen's credibility had taken a hit. Over the next week, Karen's campaign unraveled. Her petition fizzled as neighbors stopped by to see the tower for themselves. Some even asked if they could use the weather data for their own preparedness plans. Mrs. Alvarez became an unexpected ally, sharing stories of past storms and explaining how my tower could help the town coordinate with FEMA during emergencies. Karen, meanwhile, doubled down, posting on the neighborhood app about eyesores and vigilantes. But her posts backfire. People commented with support for the tower, and one neighbor even called her out for exaggerating. Karen, you said it was a sniper's nest. It's literally a weather station, they wrote. The thread exploded with likes, and Karen went silent online. The final blow came when FEMA sent a representative to inspect the tower after I submitted a follow-up report. The rep, a cheerful woman named Linda, was impressed. This is exactly the kind of proactive mitigation we need, she said, adding my tower to a case study for community resilience. Karen, who'd caught wind of the visit, watched from her porch as Linda took photos and shook my hand. I didn't gloat, but I couldn't help feeling a surge of vindication. Karen's attempt to paint me as a menace had only highlighted her own pettiness. In the end, the tower stood tall, not just as a symbol of preparedness but as a testament to standing up to baseless accusations. Karen's complaint had forced me to defend my work, but it also brought the community together. Neighbors started a group to discuss storm preparedness, and Mrs. Alvarez offered to teach a workshop on reading weather data. I turned Karen's drama into something positive, and that felt better than any argument I could have won. So, what do you think? Was Karen wrong to jump to conclusions, or did she have a point about checking on unfamiliar structures? Share your thoughts. I am curious to hear where you stand.